Elon Musk entered a small Texas diner wearing a MAGA hat and found himself face to face with a group of bikers. What followed would leave anyone stunned. This wasn't the kind of place you'd easily spot. It was tucked away along a dusty stretch just outside Amarillo, Texas. The diner's neon sign flickered weakly against the fading light of the late afternoon sky. Inside, the smell of sizzling bacon mixed with the sweet aroma of maple syrup. The murmur of quiet conversations filled the room, creating an atmosphere of simple comfort. It wasn't fancy, but it was a refuge for both locals and weary travelers. Elon pulled his electric truck into the lot, stepping out in his usual casual style: jeans, a Tesla t-shirt, and a MAGA hat he had picked up at a conference. It wasn't a statement for him, it was just a gift that had been sitting in his truck. Today it served as protection from the hot Texas sun. He slid into a corner booth, ordered coffee and waffles, and settled in, enjoying the quiet anonymity of the moment. The bell above the door jingled as a group of 6 bikers walked in, clad in leather jackets, their boots pounding the floor with a confident rhythm. They exuded an air of independence, their laughter echoing across the room. Most of the diner's patrons glanced over before quickly returning to their meals. But not Elon. He caught the gaze of one biker, a burly man with a grizzled beard and a jacket marked with a nickname, Bull. Bull's laughter abruptly stopped as he stared at the man in the booth, his eyes narrowing on the MAGA hat. A smirk twisted his face and he called out, "Looks like someone wandered a bit too far from Hollywood." His voice cut through the diner, and his friends chuckled, but their eyes were gaying, watching that interaction. The waitress froze, anxiety creeping across her face. Elon calmly looked up, his expression neutral but curious. "Hollywood?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. Said the yellow. "Yeah. That hat's a statement," Bull replied, his voice lowering as he approached. "You sure about that?" Elon set his coffee down slowly, never breaking eye contact. "Sometimes a hat is just a hat," he said evenly, his words hanging in the air. The room grew silent, all eyes on them, the tension thick. Bull leaned closer, his shadow falling over the booth. "A hat like that doesn't walk into places like this without a reason." Bill remained unruffled. "It's interesting," he said. "A piece of fabric can carry so much weight. You're reading a lot into it. Why is that?" Bull blinked, taken aback. "Because it stands for something. People wear it to show which side they're on. So, which side are you on, Mr. Big Shot?" Elon glanced around the room. The diners were frozen, all eyes darting between him and Bull. A man sitting at the counter muttered under his breath, "This is why I don't stop at places like this anymore." With a soft sigh, Elon turned back to Bull. Do you really want to have this conversation here? He asked, gesturing subtly to the now riveted audience. Bull squared his shoulders. I'm not. People like you don't come out here unless you're looking to stir things up. Elon smiled faintly. I came for waffles, he said. They're good. You should try them. Bull's glare shot toward the group, silencing them instantly. He turned back to Elon. You think this is funny? No, Elon replied. But I think misunderstandings usually are. Bull cocked his head, his brow furrowing. What's there to misunderstand? That hat speaks loud enough. Jamie, don't be the first one. Elon leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. Maybe we should talk about what it says to you, he suggested, because that seems to matter a lot right now. The room held its breath, awaiting Bull's response. For a moment, even his friends seemed unsure of what would come next. You want to know what it says to me? Paul asked, his voice measured but heavy with years of unspoken judgment. It says you are either clueless or you're looking for a fight. That hat's got a history. People wear it to make a statement, one that doesn't sit right with everyone. Elon took a slow sip of his coffee, his gaze steady. That's fair, he said, but isn't it worth asking why someone like me might wear it? Or are you more interested in making assumptions? Elon gave a comment. Paul straightened, narrowing his eyes. All right then, why are you wearing it? Elon set his coffee down and brushed the brim of the hat with his fingers. Because it was a gift, he said simply. I don't wear it to take sides. I wear it because it reminds me of the person who gave it to me. A retired engineer who spent his life solving problems that most people didn't even know existed. We had a great conversation about hard work, innovation, and what give you foolish mind to destroy. For a moment, Bull's expression softened, if only slightly. That's different, he admitted, but you've got to understand how it looks to folks out here. I do, Elad replied, and I respect that, but maybe instead of judging someone based on what they're wearing, we could talk about what we stand for. What really matters. This is what I think. The room was silent. The bikers exchanged uncertain glances, clearly unaccustomed to seeing their leader challenged this way. One of them, a wiry man with a scar on his cheek, spoke up. All right, genius. What do you stand for? Elon glanced around the room, his gaze meeting each face before returning to Bull. I stand for moving forward, he said, for finding common ground even when it feels impossible, for believing that no matter how divided we seem, there's always a way to connect. The room felt different now, quieter, more thoughtful. Bull's expression was unreadable for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. You've got my attention, he said, his voice rough but less hostile. So, what's your idea of moving forward? Elon leaned forward slightly, clasping his hands on the table. Moving forward starts with conversations like this one. People don't always see eye to eye, but most of the time, it's because they've never really tried to understand where the other person is coming from. Bo cocked his head. Sounds like a fancy way of saying, let's all get along. The world doesn't work like that. Elon shook his head. No, it doesn't. But it also doesn't work when people assume the worst about each other without asking questions. Take us, for example. You saw this head and made a judgment. I get it. Where I'm from, people make judgments too. But imagine how different things might be if we started by asking why, instead of assuming we already know. Bull seemed to wrestle with the idea, and for a moment, the other bikers were quiet, considering. One of them, the scarred man, spoke again. All right, Elon, since we're asking questions, why do you really come here? A guy like you doesn't just wander into a hole-in-the-wall diner in the middle of Texas for waffles. Bull seemed to rent, like his thoughts were turning in the opposite direction. Elon smiled. Believe it or not, I'm scouting locations for a project. I like to see things for myself, talk to people, get a feel for the area. You'd be surprised how much you can learn just by listening. The scarred man chuckled. Listening, huh? You're talking to the wrong crowd for that. Hara. Elon smiled back. Action's good, but it's better when it's informed. That's why I build things. To solve problems. To create something that makes life better for as many people as possible. And that includes folks like you. Paul narrowed his eyes. Folks like us? People who know what it means to work hard, Elon said. To build something with your own two hands. You think Tesla or SpaceX came out of nowhere? They're built on the same principles you live by. Grit, determination, and refusing to give up when things get tough. The bikers, who had moments ago seemed ready for a fight, now listened in curiosity. Bull, in particular, seemed to be softening. So, what's your angle? Bull asked. Trying to win us over with fancy words and big ideas? No angle, Elon replied simply. Just a conversation. But if you're interested, I've got something to show you. Something that might change the way you think about what's possible. Bull raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah? What's that? Chua, he mumbled in a hollow voice. Elon stood and tossed some bills on the table to cover his meal. How about a tour? I've got a Tesla facility not far from here. Come see what we're building and what it could mean for you. Kalon fell to her bottom. The bikers exchanged uncertain glances, but there was a flicker of intrigue in their expressions. Bull hesitated, studying Elon. Then he shrugged. Why the hell not? But if this is some kind of sales pitch, we're out. No sales pitch, Elon replied with a smile. Just an invitation. The bikers followed Elon to his cyber truck, their boots crunching on the gravel. A few exchanged quiet comments, unsure of what to expect. Paul, walking at the front, scrutinized Elon as if trying to figure out his angle. When they reached the truck, the young man with the red bandana whistled. That yours? He asked. pointing to the angular design of the Cybertruck. Sure is, Elon said, swiping a key card. The truck's door handles popped out, and the headlights blinked to life. Hop in, it's not far. Elon's eyes. The bikers hesitated. Bull crossed his arms. We're not piling into that thing until you tell us what we're getting into. Keelan leaned casually against the truck. What you're getting into, he said, is a chance to see something different. To understand that innovation isn't about tearing people apart. It's about finding new ways to bring them together. You might not trust me yet, but I think you'll trust what I'm about to show you. Bo studied Elon for a moment, then nodded. All right, let's see what this guy's got. The bikers climbed into the truck, squeezing into the unconventional gap. As Elon drove, he explained how Tesla wasn't just about luxury cars, but about changing energy, transportation, and what's possible for everyone. They arrived at the Tesla facility, a massive, sleek building that seemed to glint with possibilities under the Texas sun. Inside, the contrast was striking. The air was cool. The hum of machinery filled the background, and sleek robots walked alongside people on assembly lines. Elon guided them through, showing the battery assembly line, solar panels being tested, and prototypes for more affordable electric cars. Bull, who had been silent for most of the tour, finally spoke. You really believe these can make a difference? I do, Iran replied. But it's not just about the technology. It's about people being willing to think differently, to imagine a better future, and to work together to make it happen. Bo nodded slowly, his gaze drifting over the assembly line. It's impressive, he admitted. I'll give you that. But how does any of this help someone like me? Someone who spent his life fixing old machines, not building new ones. Elon turned to him. It helps because it shows what's possible. It's easy to get stuck in the way things have always been. But when you see something like this, it opens your mind to what you could do too. The bikers were quiet, reflecting on what they had seen. Even Boo, who had challenged Elon earlier, seemed softened by the experience. As the tour ended, Elon turned to face them. Look, I'm not saying this place will solve every problem, he said, but it's a start. And if you're ever curious, if you want to see what else is out there, you're always welcome here. Bull stepped forward and extended his hand. You're an odd guy, Musk, he said with a faint smile, but I respect what you're doing. Elon shook his hand firmly.